A lot to get to this morning. Thanks for joining us. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers.
This morning, both Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump are claiming victory after the first and possibly only presidential debate between the two.
Yeah, and what was also the first in-person meeting ever for the candidates in Philadelphia last night. They sparred over the economy, immigration, and reproductive rights. During the 90-minute debate that was riddled with personal attacks, both tried to convince voters they have a better plan for the country. Here's a look at some of the highlights.
Kamala Harris, let's have a good debate.
Nice to see you. Have fun.
Thank you. Donald Trump has no plan for you. And when you look at his economic plan, it's all about tax breaks for the richest people. I am offering what I describe as an opportunity economy, and the best economists in our country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America. What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse. Mine would strengthen the economy.
She has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But if she ever got elected, she'd change it. And it will be the end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist.
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that. And I pledge to you, when Congress passes a bill to put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban.
The baby will be born, and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby, because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born.
They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in, and all over the world, crime is down all over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof, despite their fraudulent statements that they made.
As you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But Vice
Excuse me,
President
the
Harris,
FBI they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud.
I think this is so rich, coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing.
We have full team coverage of last night's debate and the fallout. In just a few minutes, we'll get analysis from NBC News senior national politics reporter John Allen. But we're going to get started with NBC's Monica Alba, who covers the White House, as well as Vice President Harris, and NBC News correspondent Dasha Burns, who has been tracking the Trump campaign, of course. Good morning to both of you. Monica, I'll get started with you. Ahead of last night's debate, there was a sense, I think, in some of the polling, as well as just in what we were hearing, our NBC News colleagues from voters, that they didn't feel like they knew the vice president very well, didn't feel like they had a lot of clarity on her policies. Did last night's debate change that? And what are you hearing from the Harris campaign?
Well, her advisors and her campaign, they're all feeling pretty good this morning, Savannah and Joe, about how that went. They felt like the answers that she practiced in her mock debate sessions about trying to distinguish herself from both Joe Biden and Donald Trump landed pretty decently. They feel like she was able to get in some of these policies and proposals without going on too long and getting into the weeds. There were certainly some questions that she sidestepped and did not get into much detail on, but they also feel like there was a particular answer in the evening where she summed up, in their view, Donald Trump's entire record in office in less than 1 minute, when she kept saying, what Donald Trump left us was this. He left us with this kind of an economy, she said. He left us with this kind of a post-pandemic recovery. He left us with all of these issues. And so they feel like rhetorically she was able to do this. And they feel like one of the most key effective strategies that they also had discussed going into this, she was able to use pretty well, which was this idea of baiting the former president to engage on certain topics that they say made him look defensive, on things like Project 2025, on things like the fact that she said there are people who leave his rallies early, other major issues about where he went to school and about his supporters, things that then he spent time responding on instead of then enumerating his own positions. So overall, the Harris team says they feel like this was a, quote, decisive victory. They do feel like there was a balance, they say, in the vice president talking about her own view of the future while defending what she's done in the past, too.
Dasha, let's touch on a moment that raised a lot of eyebrows, getting a lot of attention online. The former president repeated the false claim, which his campaign has promoted, that Haitian immigrants in Springfield, Ohio, are eating people's pets. Let's play a bite and talk about it on the other side.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well, I've seen people on television.
Let me just say here, this is the
people on television say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
but
television.
The people
I'm taking it from the city manager.
Their dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice President Harris, I'll let you.
All right, so Dasha, walk us through what this is about, what the facts tell us, and what is Trump's team saying this morning?
Yeah, Joe, I got a lot of DMs about this last night, people wondering what was going on there. Look, this all started from some social media rumors that were then amplified by conservative influencers on X and other spaces, and then again amplified by the Trump campaign. This is something there's no evidence of as of now. The mayor of Springfield says they have no documented cases of this, and he says that it's actually distracting from the real issues like housing concerns, resources needed for schools, and an overwhelmed health care system. And this is one of those moments that, to Monica's point, Republican operatives are telling me they're frustrated by Trump sort of taking the bait and then getting off topic. Immigration is a topic that should be a strong one for him. Polling shows that voters trust him more on this issue than Harris, but taking it sideways that way was not what his allies were hoping for.
Monica, it seemed like the vice president sort of rattled Trump on several occasions, appearing to get under his skin. We had actually heard that was some advice that the vice president had received in terms of how to approach this. This morning, the Harris team is calling for another debate. What can you tell us about what they're trying for here?
Yeah, and that advice specifically, at least from one person who has faced Donald Trump on the debate stage one-on-one, is former Secretary of State and Democratic nominee from 2016, Hillary Clinton. We know that she spoke with Vice President Harris. They've been in touch over the last 7 weeks. And that was one of the things that she advised her on, this idea of he may try to bait you, but you should try to bait him first. So it seems like they did employ that. And then in terms of another debate, almost immediately after the event wrapped up last night, the Harris campaign said, great, let's do it again in October, obviously indicating they felt pretty pleased with her performance. Now, this was something that the vice president herself had said she was open to if Donald Trump showed up last night, and then they said we would have conversations about a potential future debate. Now, we know that the former president is not necessarily committing to another contest, so it's unclear whether there will be another debate, but given how the Harris team responded last night, that's a really good indication of where they feel they are in terms of the upper hand, they would argue, in terms of having another debate, because they feel like it went well enough that they could have another matchup. But I think their sense there is that they're almost saying that in such a way that's so forceful that they don't think Donald Trump will necessarily commit to it. So again, it's another example of them perhaps trying to bait him into doing so because they feel that that might work for them.
Dasha, another indication. After the debate, the former president made an appearance in the spin room where we normally hear from campaign surrogates. Most observers will say if a candidate is showing up in that spin room, they probably don't think they won. How's the Trump campaign feeling about his performance last night?
Yeah, the traditional idea in politics is that winners don't spin, right? But he came into the spin room. He said it was the greatest debate ever. He cited some poll numbers that we can fact check that weren't accurate. And he was frustrated by the moderators of the debate. And when asked both in the spin room and then this morning again, he was on Fox News about another debate with Harris. He was non-committal. He says, I don't know if we need another debate because we had such a great night last night. So will a second debate happen? That's a big question mark, despite his campaign for weeks saying that they have committed to another debate. And overall, his allies have been out in full force on all the media platforms, basically criticizing the moderators. Another indication that perhaps it didn't go how they were hoping it would for various reasons, guys.
All right, Dasha Burns and Monica Alba, thank you both very much.
For more on the debate, we're joined now by NBC News senior national politics reporter Jonathan Allen. John, good to have you with us. This was a much different debate from what we saw in June between former President Trump and President Biden. In a new piece for NBCNews.com, you wrote that Vice President Harris is a, quote, much tougher rival now, and that Mr. Trump, quote, missed an opportunity to lock in his good personal vibes after recent favorable polling. What are your key takeaways from last night?
Yeah, I mean, Kamala Harris went out and made cogent arguments on her behalf. She had coherent rebuttals. She was a much different candidate than Joe Biden in the June debate. So number one, you watch Trump struggle with that. You watched him for the first time actually face an adversary who had some deftness and agility on stage. I think he was rattled. At times, not always, but at times. And he was distracted from getting his message across. You heard Dasha talking about this, she said rumors. There's been sort of started on social media, the idea that immigrants in Springfield, Ohio are eating pets. There's no there's no evidence for that. And Trump was sort of out there. So the main takeaway here is, you had a race where Donald Trump was, was in a worse place than he had been against Kamala Harris versus where he'd been against Joe Biden, and that did not change last night.
Let's talk more about the former president and his strategy in the debate. We know Mr. Trump referenced President Biden often, saying his name many times over the 90 minutes in trying to prevent Vice President Harris from separating herself from the Biden administration. At one point, Harris said, "You're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me." Maybe a strong point to make, right? I mean, on the former president's part. I mean, she has been the vice president for 3 years, talking about what she will do ahead. How did he do in trying to make that point?
It is a strong point, and I thought that broke through, right? He said, you've had 3.5 years to make these changes. You haven't done it. Why haven't you done it? Harris is absolutely running on Joe Biden's record and Joe Biden's agenda to the extent that she has changed policy positions from his agenda or his record. It's been to essentially, basically add a little bit to what Biden's called for. So, Trump was, I think, very much able to break through on that. She is making the rhetorical argument that she is a new generation of leader. You heard her say that last night. So that makes her distinct from both Trump and from Biden, as she said. But this is something she's got to figure out over the course of the next 55 days. Can she basically run on Joe Biden's record, Joe Biden's agenda as a fresher candidate and have people believe that they will get something different, because most Americans think that the country's on the wrong track.
And John, when we talk about Vice President Harris, a recent New York Times Siena College poll showed a majority of young voters feel they need to learn more about her, as well as more than 40% of both Hispanic and black voters. We know Harris got under Trump's skin throughout the debate, including making references to crowd sizes. That was clearly the goal. Her team is pleased with that. Did she miss a chance to define herself more last night?
I think she did, Joe. That doesn't mean she didn't define herself at all. It doesn't mean that she won't have won over some of those voters who wanted to hear more. But I do think that, her main goal, it appeared last night, was to get under Donald Trump's skin, and that worked. But also, the American public's very familiar with Donald Trump. What they're still waiting to hear more of is what is it that Kamala Harris will do? And not only what is it what she will do, but how will she get it done? Because she would face in any circumstance a difficult Congress. She would face in any circumstance a Supreme Court that is, that has values that are very different than a Democratic president's agenda. So, what's she going to be able to get done? And so I think there's probably some more work to be done on that end of things.
All right, John, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
In the aftermath of last night's debate, the Harris camp picked up a major endorsement.
Singer Taylor Swift announced she was endorsing the vice president just moments after the debate wrapped up. In an Instagram post to her more than 283 million followers, Swift said Harris fights for the rights and causes she believes in and called Harris a steady-handed, gifted leader. She also criticized the fake AI images shared by the former president that falsely claimed that she endorsed the Trump-Vance ticket.
The Grammy-winning artist went on to sign her post, quote, childless cat lady, a reference to language used by Trump's running mate J.D. Vance to describe women who do not have children.
Everyone's sort of been waiting to see who she would endorse. We know that she did make an endorsement 4 years ago. She didn't make one 8 years ago and has talked about regretting that.
Absolutely.
Now we have this endorsement. The big thing will be, does it make a difference when it comes to young voters?
That is right.
All right, let's turn now to Hurricane Francine. It's currently taking aim at the Gulf Coast this morning. In Louisiana, mandatory evacuations are in place along the shore for the Category 1 storm that's only expected to get stronger before it makes landfall sometime this afternoon.
Parts of southern Texas are already dealing with rising tides ahead of what forecasters expect to be life-threatening storm surge along the coast. Officials warn those dangerous storm surges could hit areas from western Louisiana into the east along the Mississippi and Alabama border. Many people have been stocking up on supplies to help them get through the storm that's already packing sustained winds of up to 90 miles an hour. This morning, nearly the entire Louisiana coastline is under a hurricane warning as President Biden declared a state of emergency overnight to help the areas most likely to be affected.
NBC News correspondent Kathy Park is live for us in Baton Rouge. So, Kathy, on its current path, Francine expected to drop up to 12 inches of rain across several states along the coast. What are the conditions you're seeing so far?
Hey, Joe, Savannah, good morning to both of you. So right now we are slowly starting to feel the outer bands of Hurricane Francine. So the winds are starting to kick up, but things will deteriorate quickly over the next several hours. Landfall expected sometime mid-afternoon or early evening. But we are watching several issues potentially later on today, which could include flooding. As you mentioned, rainfall totals in some locations could be up to 12 inches. And especially along the coastal community, storm surge could reach up to 10 feet. And of course, those extreme winds picking up that could lead to widespread power outages and downed trees.
Schools in New Orleans are closed. Mandatory evacuations are underway up and down the Louisiana coast. Tell us how people have been preparing where you are.
So, Savannah, when you say hurricane, tropical storm here in Louisiana, residents typically know what to do, and that is to prepare and get prepared pretty quickly. And that's what they were doing yesterday as well as Monday. Grocery stores, there were some long lines, people stocking up on the essentials, food and water. Gas stations also pretty packed as folks are fueling up their vehicles. And yesterday we were at a sandbagging station. That was also a popular spot. Lots of folks packing up those sandbags, preparing their homes. But of course, later on today, as the weather takes a turn, officials are encouraging people to stay off the roadways.
Kathy, the National Hurricane Center says Francine expected to gain strength and actually accelerate before making landfall later today. How are local officials, how are state officials just getting ready to respond to those in need after the storm passes through, especially anyone who might be stranded in floodwaters?
Right. So the governor of Louisiana did issue an emergency declaration, and he said he's actually deployed members of the National Guard, and they are equipped with food, water, high water vehicles as well in case water rescues are necessary later on today. Of course, law enforcement throughout Louisiana, they're also stepping up their patrols, and they'll be monitoring the conditions over the next several hours.
All right, Kathy Park. Kathy, thank you so much.
For more on how Louisiana is preparing for Francine to make landfall, let's bring in Chief Thomas T.J. Morse of the Baton Rouge Police Department. Good morning, Chief. Thank you very much for your time on a busy morning. So parts of Louisiana are already starting to feel the impact of the storm, we know, but landfall still a few hours away. At this point, are you getting any reports of damage, any problems already? Before the worst comes, what's your message to people there in Baton Rouge as well?
Good morning, Savannah. Thank you very much for having me. So right now we're still kind of in that waiting period, and we're starting to see some rain, starting a little bit of wind pick up. We're expecting a lot more of that to happen in the next few hours and into the afternoon, but we're already prepared. And over here in South Louisiana, of course, we're not strangers to storms or hurricanes, so we have a lot of preparations that we've already done leading up to this. You can follow us on Facebook, download our app to get a lot of up-to-date things that are going on. BRLA.gov/emergency. great place for the public to go and look. They have everything on there from road closures, sandbag locations, shelters, and even safety tips for running generators in case you have power outages.
This storm could be making landfall just as the sun is setting. For your officers, what are going to be the biggest challenges? And just what's your top advice for people to stay safe as the storm is hitting and then in the immediate aftermath?
Yeah, so for our officers, we have to think about their personal lives and their professional lives. They have to get their homes ready and make sure their families are good, and then come into work and make sure that the community's safe. We have our officers working extended shifts, so we have a little bit of more overlap, more coverage on the streets. We also have all of our officers that are normally in those specialized non-uniform divisions. They're out working in uniform today to be able to supplement, in case we have to do road closures or block roads because of flooding, directing traffic because of power outages. We learned a lot over the years. We have teams standing by with high water rescue vehicles and even boats that we can launch. So we're prepared as much as we can, and now we're just kind of in that waiting game.
President Biden joined the governor of Louisiana in declaring a state of emergency ahead of Francine's landfall. What kind of resources does that make available to you in these situations, and what resources do you need?
Yeah, so the federal declaration of emergency has been really helpful, as well as the state with the governor and locally with our mayor. A lot of great leadership. We're able to stand up those resources I was talking about, get the extra manpower, hours, and the financial responsibility that comes with that. Getting all the stakeholders in one room. We're stepping up our emergency office, our mayor's office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness, as well as our own incident command systems. So we can get all the stakeholders, not only public safety, but all the community stakeholders in the same room when it comes to the energy folks, first aid, Red Cross, all those people being in the same room because of these declarations.
Chief Thomas T.J. Morse, thank you very much for joining us this morning. We appreciate your time. Stay safe. We're thinking of your community.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Let's get a closer look at the track of Hurricane Francine with your Morning News Now weather.
Meteorologist Violetta Yaz joins us now with more. Good morning. What's the latest?
Good morning, guys. Well, not too many changes with the latest advisory, at least not from when this intensified yesterday at about 7 o'clock in the evening into a hurricane. This is still a Category 1 storm right now, sitting about 245 miles to the south and west of Morgan City, Louisiana. Those winds still at 90 miles per hour. We're still seeing that northeast motion continue. You can see that eye starting to get a little better defined here, and we are expecting at least a bit of intensification before landfall. Of course, flooding rain going to be one of the biggest impacts. You can already see some of those rain bands moving into parts of southern Louisiana. We could be looking at 2 to 4 inches of rain per hour in some spots. And keep in mind, this area has been very active as of late. The soil in parts of the Gulf states is already saturated from recent rain. So unfortunately, in some spots, it's not going to take too much additional rainfall to either create or exacerbate any existing flooding. So some of the more intense flooding expected here in places like Baton Rouge and New Orleans, all the way up through Jackson, Mississippi, before that rain eventually spreads to the north and to the east as well, as the storm weakens as it continues to move over land. Now, the storm surge is going to be a big part of this as well, unfortunately. So we'll see that surge accompanied by large breaking waves. So something to keep in mind here, especially in this area where you see the 5 to 10 foot storm surge. This is a very dangerous situation, especially for some of those parishes in southern Louisiana. Keep in mind, this situation is very unique in Louisiana. They've got very shallow water there just offshore. So when you get hours and hours of an onshore wind, that is going to create a very dangerous situation for a very vulnerable coastline. So something to keep in mind for that particular area. You can see that onshore wind expected to continue, and that's what really causes that water to pile up at the coast. So talking about the wind a little bit, you can see those strongest winds expected just east of the storm center, with gusts up to 75 miles per hour in some spots. So extremely windy as well across eastern Louisiana, eventually pushing up into parts of Mississippi as well. So this is, of course, a very multifaceted storm, and we're watching that potential for intensification into a Category 2 perhaps this afternoon. Remember, we're only a couple of hours from landfall here, so time is running out, but the conditions are possible ahead of that landfall before the storm eventually does weaken further north up across parts of the Mississippi Valley.
All right, Violetta, we know we'll keep an eye on it. Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.